Warriors podcast. I'm Max.
I'm Rich.
And here on the Weird Warriors podcast, we will be focusing on the Weird War Tales comic book series published by DC Comics from 1971 to 1983. And on this episode in particular, we're taking a look at Weird War Tales number 64. But first, Rich has some stuff to say to you.
Intel report. A little bit surprised we haven't scratched this itch from this title yet. What If? 71 from March 1995. Script by Ian Edginton, pencils by Larry Stroman, inks by Rob Stull and Jack Snyder. 1944. Nazi fifth columnists infiltrate Los Alamos to obtain critical data from the Manhattan Project to further the Führer's war against the Allied nations. Stopped by Captain America, the infiltrators kill researchers and reduce vital documents and equipment to ash before taking their own lives. Forced to take a new approach, a different weapon is designed, built around a heart of fissionable gamma material. On August 6th, 1945, the gamma bomb is dropped on Hiroshima and a second days later over Nagasaki. 1 month later, the Second World War ends. Just not in the way anyone could have anticipated. What if the gamma bomb spawned 1,000 Hulks? Yeah, that was a good one.
I've never read that, and I'm not exactly surprised because you can't read every comic book, but I like Larry Stroman. I tend to like the What If series, and that plot sounds awesome. So I have a Marvel Unlimited membership now. I let my DC one lapse and I signed up for Marvel. I'm going to see if they have this issue on the service and check it out.
It's a good one, obviously. I mean, the invaders tried to stop them, but outnumbered like that, they just got slaughtered. And, Namor had to run for it because what can he do alone? And, and off we go. Nick Fury is undercover. There's, the origins, the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, they start coming, popping into the scene, trying to do like a resistance movement and everything. It's a good story. It's really, really good.
Yeah, so I'm going to open up the app tonight and see if I can find that. All right, cool.
Okay, cover detail. Art by Joe Kubert, 35 cents. Weird War Tales is yellow on the red background of the cover. A determined GI charges through machine gun fire and shell fire, M1 in hand. 9 other GIs follow him. 3 in the lower right corner are getting blown off their feet by an explosion. Directly behind the leading GI is an invisible Satan with his clawed hand on the soldier's right shoulder. Eerie word balloons from Satan proclaim, "Don't be afraid, Massey. Even if no one else survives, you will live through D-Day. Thanks to me." Cover date, June 1978. Date of release, March 7th, 1978. Old comics, man. Seen on eBay for anywhere between $20 and $2,000. Holy crap. Why such a wide range? We shall get to that. Killjoy. Satan's right leg is missing. Hey, Max, hop onto the CNC for me if you don't mind.
Yeah, Satan's right leg is missing, and so are all of his pants. But we'll ignore that. I hope Massey is ignoring that too, because that's an uncomfortable position he's in on that cover. But seriously though, folks, I'll start my CNC and say, hell, in quotes, yeah. This is a very cool, eye-catching cover. Gets the theme of the series across and then some. The Spectral Devil, pantslessness aside, is awesome, and the no corners cut effort put into the individual tribulations of the soldiers in the background is a Kubert hallmark. Like every one of those people is going through something different. Like that is what I'm here for when you tell me Joe Kubert did a cover. Like he didn't have to put that effort in, but it's there. And you can think of a story that at least a moment that each of those poor souls is going through. So I say right freaking on with this one.
This is Satan. Twin-toed foot, horns, forked beard, spade tail, etc. The red background makes the white outlined devil look exactly what we expect. The GIs getting blown off their feet are seen through his leg, and his head, shoulders, and tail conceal the yellow of the comic's title. This is easily the most Sergeant Rock cover we've seen so far in this book by the Master. I'd like to see this drawing without the title in the way, though. Maybe have it completely behind the devil instead of being transparent in front of him. It's a bit distracting, which is unfortunate because this is a great cover otherwise. Yes, concealing part of the title isn't usually a good choice, but I'm pretty sure seeing weird with the action below would be enough for most people. Moving on. We have an intro page, art by Romeo Tanghal. Death wears the uniform of an American general, World War II. He stands with a pointer in front of a map of the Normandy shoreline. His shadow falls on the map as classic Death holding a scythe. A huge skull with a swastika on its forehead is on the map, covering 3 of the 5 invasion beaches. Death says,
I am Death, and though I have mastered this world since it began, still there is no length to which men will not go to avoid my touch. Sometimes fear makes them flee. Other times it is wisdom, and even love can make men run from me. But in the end, the reason does not matter, for I will not be denied, especially in my own domain, the Weird War.
Killjoy. The Khotan Peninsula and Cherbourg are both misspelled on the map. Comments and commendations. The colors of the skull draw your eyes right to it. The pinks and purples of great contrast to the blue of the English Channel. From there, your eyes back off a bit to the details of the map. The U.S. 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions are coming in from the left of the Khotan Peninsula, and the British 6th Airborne from the right towards Merville. Utah and Sword Beaches are highlighted. Then you see classic Death's shadow. Sadly, General Death detracts from the overall effort. He's too small for the scene. I don't know what the fix here would have been, though. You can't bring the map much closer to the viewer, and his classic shadow has to be close enough to fall on the map. The details of the uniform don't work out for me either. I like this page more than I dislike it, though.
Yeah, and I can see why you would, but if you're someone like me and a lot of those details, like, you know, getting the approaches of the troops on the map and all that are just like stuff you just glaze over visually and you don't know anything about it anyway, you'd have this reaction like I had. I felt like after that kick-ass cover, we get this just kind of serviceable, even a bit drab, just sort of sitting there intro page. It's not bad. And your compliments are well earned by the piece once I take a deeper look at it. But it's nothing special. And even Death's dialogue is just kind of It's like, and even love causes them to run from. It's just sort of there. It's boilerplate. So moving on.
Story number 1. Deliver Me from D-Day. Cover story, 6 pages. Script by Wyatt Guan, aka Martin Pascoe. Pencils by legendary, documented here, anywhere for the first time artist, Frank Miller. Inks by another first timer, Danny Bulanati. Synopsis. Late spring 1944. Everyone knows that the big Allied invasion across the channel is going to happen soon. It's all Private Kenneth Massey can think about as he goes through the chow line. An NCO directing traffic bellows, "Move it, get your grub, sit down, look alive, we got a rough day tomorrow." Rough day, another soldier mutters. I guess today was supposed to be a picnic. Rough day. How many more? How much longer until D-Day? Finishing up, Massey notices the soldier sitting across from him had fallen asleep while eating, and he reaches across the table to take it for himself. A bespectacled corporal steps in from nowhere and delivers a right to Massey's jaw. "That was low, Massey," he snarls. "Do something like that again and I'll kill you." As Massey gets up, he overhears 2 other soldiers talking. "I think tomorrow's going to be it. Captain's talking to some brass, a general, I think. I seen his jeep. The private panics. Can't be. They can't expect me to fight the biggest battle of the war. Walking outside, he sees the captain and General Eisenhower talking. It must be true. Tomorrow is D-Day. Though tired, Massey can't sleep that night. He hears the distant rumble of guns and in terror imagines all the ways a man can die in battle. Until he hears the scream of an incoming shell, but it doesn't land. Massey throws on his gear and runs outside to investigate, and is awestruck to see a 750-pound shell held frozen in the air by the gesture of a strange man in a U.S. uniform. His eyes glow red, and he has a pointed red beard and long, evil fingernails. Frightened, Private Massey? Who am I? Say, a force. War breeds strange forces. I'm one of them. I'm here because you called me with your fear. Do you doubt the reality? Then watch. Watch your death come closer. 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 He gestures, and the huge shell slowly moves towards Massey until it pins him against a tree. Stop it, Massey cries. I don't want to die. I can protect you for a single day. Name that day. D-Day. Don't let me die on D-Day. Very well. But I want something in exchange. My soul? No, Massey. Your soul isn't worth much to me. But I'll trade your life for another. Go to the tent of the corporal who hit you tonight. Wet down all of his ammunition, and you'll be safe. Otherwise, I guarantee you will die on D-Day. Massey does as he is told, taking a box of ammo from the corporal's pack and dunking it in a nearby stream before replacing it. The next morning, the men break camp and board the transports, each with his own fears and forebodings, except for Private Kenneth Massey, who is strangely calm for the sea-tossed voyage to the beachhead. As the men storm ashore, the corporal's rifle misfires. Before he can clear his weapon, 5 enemy rounds mow him down. Confidence surges through Massey. I can't die! I can't die! Bursting from cover, he charges an enemy machine gun nest. Massey, the sergeant cries, come back! Don't try to be a hero! No sweat, Sarge. It's a piece of cake. He hurls a grenade at the enemy nest, but is caught in the resulting blast. The sergeant and captain are shocked. My God, did you see that? Massey, a hero! I would never have believed it. Distinguished himself in battle. But Massey doesn't hear them. Massey is dead. His spirit rises over the knocked out machine gun and screams at the devil. No! We had a deal! Indeed we did. But this is May 14th. It's not D-Day. This is only a preparatory strike. D-Day is weeks away. Of course, Private Massey had one consolation. He may be the only GI in hell whose cowardice earned him a Medal of Honor. Killjoy History Minute. Page 2, panel 3, for example. The captain's railroad tracks are sideways, but Eisenhower's 4 stars are obviously off center too. If you're standing at Ike's 9 o'clock, his rank wouldn't look like that. I can't find any reference to a raid on May 14th, 1944. Less than a month before D-Day, I highly doubt Eisenhower would have wanted to stir the pot and have all the casualties and damaged gear to deal with, never mind alerting the Germans to an event they knew was coming soon. But this story did remind me of the disaster at Slapton Sands, England, during Operation Tiger. Devon closely resembled Utah Beach and served as a training area for U.S. servicemen. Early in the morning of April 28, 1944, 9 German E-boats, think PT boats, evaded the insufficient vessels escorting the convoy of LSTs and attacked the slow-moving vessels. 2 LSTs were sunk and 2 more were damaged. The Germans escaped without harm. In total, 749 servicemen were killed. Many drowned or died of hypothermia in the cold sea while waiting to be rescued. Many had not been shown how to put on their life belt correctly and placed it around their waist, the only available spot because of their large backpacks. In some cases, this meant that when they jumped into the water, the weight of their combat packs flipped them upside down, dragging their heads underwater and drowning them. 10 officers with detailed knowledge of the invasion were lost, and Eisenhower was considering postponing the assault until the bodies of all 10 were recovered in case the Germans had captured them. The loss of the ships was felt during the invasion. A lid of secrecy was clamped over the disaster. If over 700 men died training for the invasion, what would the actual attack be like? Paradoxically, fewer men died landing on Utah Beach on June 6th than died here. Casualties from Tiger were later blended into the overall casualty lists for D-Day. But as is often the case, lessons were learned from the tragedy that were applied for the invasion, most notably better life jacket training provided for the landing troops, and plans made for small craft to pick up floating survivors on D-Day. Officially, there was never a cover-up, but the event was conveniently forgotten. It wasn't until the mid-1980s that the details really came to light. And in that regard, something that is stunningly and supremely appropriate, the very last issue of Sergeant Rock, number 422, addresses the disaster at Slapton Sands. Andy, Adam, and Joe Kubert all worked on that issue, and I got them all to sign it. Check the album. Comments and commendations, good sir.
Yes, Rich, we all know that you got all three of them to sign the book, but
jealousy becomes you.
We know. But yeah, if I had that, I'd never stop mentioning it either. So just as an aside, before I jump into my much less important seeming C&C after all that, again, people, let me remind you, I don't read the history minutes before we record. I want to react to them live with you guys in a way. So I'll say once again, reality proving much more messed up and shocking and disturbing than the story in this comic book, which involves the actual devil. That doesn't hold a candle to the story Rich just told you in the history minute. So, like I said, I'll get on to my far less consequential comic book complaints here. And those start with a question. And that question is, this is Frank Miller art? Prove it. When I did my first flip through of this issue, the knowledge that this was supposed to be even some very early work by the mayor of Sin City made me far less charitable than I would have otherwise been to the results on hand. Once I settled down for a proper read through, though, I pushed all that aside and saw that the art is pretty decent overall. It just doesn't look like Miller's work. This bothered me so much that I again took a break from the issue, looked up Frank's first issue of Daredevil on Marvel Unlimited, which I just mentioned I have now subscribed to check out mostly old Marvel books, and that's Daredevil number 158, published just 1 year later in 1979. And the difference between that art and what's on display in this issue of Weird War Tales is striking. Sure, Klaus Janson inks that issue of Daredevil, but it's the page designs, panel layouts, and just overlying underall quality of the drawings that seems just head and shoulders above what's here in the pages of this story. You know me, I am very tempted to say that Miller only inked Bulanades, who, by the way, I gotta say, this is one of those names I've always mispronounced in my head and read wrong for decades, because I've seen his name. And as a kid and up until reading this issue for this show, I've always said his name is Belandi in my head. Just like Michelini, I always read as I just shortened it to Michelin in my head. And so Bulanadi is it's very strange for me to even say it, but I'm that A is right there, and I never said it and I never took it in. But anyway, like I said, I'm tempted to say Miller only inked Bulanadi's work on this one, no matter what the online consensus has to say about the matter, especially given what's on display in the pages of this very issue of Weird War Tales. Now, all that aside, I'll keep the rest of my ramblings brief, I promise. The splash page we open with isn't bad. I think the helmeted host is pretty cool. The title logo is just okay. But still, not a bad opener there. On page 1, panel 4, I gotta say the corporal's reaction to Massey's transgression seems a bit much. If I see you do that again, I will kill you. I'm okay, all right, buddy. Tensions are running high. in this camp. I can see that. All right. So I did like the purple magenta coloring scheme for the dream/devil sequence on page 2. You know, I always like a good moody use of coloring in a comic book, and I thought that worked really well to establish we're in a different reality now. And panels 1 to 3 on page 4 showed off some really effective silent storytelling, which is a Frank Miller trademark. So, willing to admit I could be wrong here, because those panels I was like, that seems like Miller. He's one of the earliest ones to do very good silent storytelling. So we have that. I also really like the combat splash panel on page 5, and even the all capital letters beachhead lettering was a nice touch in my opinion. Like it could have landed one way or the other, but I really kind of dug it. It was like a headline in a newsreel or something, just jumping out on top of the panel. And then panels 2 and 3 on that same page, I guess that's all we get on the fate of the murderous corporal. That's it. I think that's him dying. So after all that buildup and I will kill you, he just sort of in the corner of a panel. That's it for him. Page 6 was pretty great except for panel 2. This is Massey's final act. And it kind of looked like he just sort of fainted as he weakly flicked the grenade in the enemy's general direction. Oh well, just not as dynamic a drawing as I thought the moment earned. The story itself was pretty standard, check the fine print of the contract with the devil stuff. You know, I'm not going to hold that because we've had plenty of tropey stories and Weird War Tales. I'm not going to act like we haven't. And the art was more or less okay. This one didn't thrill me much, but I wouldn't damn it for opening an issue of Weird War Tales.
Frank Miller has tentative credits in the 3-page story Royal Feast in the Gold Key comic The Twilight Zone 84, June 1978, by an unknown writer, which is stunningly appropriate. I have to look for that one now. This is his first confirmed credit, which explains why some of these books cost so much. A signed and slabbed first Frank Miller book? If Frank ever goes to a con I plan to go to, I'm bringing this one. Screw Sin City and Daredevil. But hey, May 14th, 1944, that's George Lucas's birthday. Everybody sing. Story first, then art. The story is dumb, utterly predictable. Don't let me die on D-Day. Fine, I got 364 other days to kill you. I was thinking June 7th, the day after, but dying before the invasion is actually a bigger zing. I won't killjoy it because Satan is involved and he could have been playing mind games with Massey. But the only place close enough for German heavy artillery to have struck Great Britain was in the Dover area, 21 miles across the Straits of Calais. And they did. From 1940 to 1944, the British and Germans traded shell fire across the straits with massive guns, killing hundreds. There were no U.S. invasion staging areas in Dover, though the Ghost Army certainly made the Nazis think otherwise. You're getting your dose of history in this story. Oh yeah, back to that. The whole ammo soaking sequence on page 4 doesn't work for me at all. The corporal doesn't notice that the cardboard box his bullets came in is wet the next morning? Sure, but setting that aside, military quality bullets are constructed in a way where getting them briefly wet won't affect their function. This isn't the ball and powder days. Those rounds would have to be submerged for days before malfunctions would occur. Hey, this is an amphibious invasion after all. You know what happens during those? You get wet. This sounds like a killjoy, don't it? Dang! Okay, for real, the story. Satan sets Massey up for a fall from Go. You accept my deal, or you die right now from this big German shell. The German translation on page 6, panel 2, Ein Verrückter, is a madman, which, works. Our deathly narrator in GI garb is awful, and his line ending the story that Massey won a Congressional Medal of Honor. A, you don't win it, you earn it. B, it's officially the Medal of Honor, not the Congressional Medal of Honor. More killjoy, damn it! The beachhead scene on Beach 5, panel 1 is pretty good, as is the Devil's Your Soul is Trash scene on page 3, panel 6. This doesn't look like classic Frank Miller art to me, but maybe Bilinati's inks changed it, or he hadn't developed his trademark style yet. We will see Miller again in these pages, penciling 2 stories in issue 68 with different inkers. So we'll find out together. Final verdict, Man, I really want to like Frank Miller's first work. To be fair, there's only one art killjoy, but Death sucks. I totally dug the aha zing of dying on March 14th, but there are plenty of other whiffs in the story that more than make up for it. Whew, I think I gotta give this one a thumbs down.
Ah, so be it. I do love when a CNC turns into even more killjoys. It's just hilarious to me. He can't help himself, people. So, speaking of things that kind of sneak up on you, we're going to go to the next story that snuck up on us with the very sneaky day after Doomsday. Haha, no one expects the day after Doomsday. It's 4 pages long. Script is by, again, our mysterious but not so mysterious Wyatt Guyon, Marty Pasco. Art by, hey, like I mentioned in my CNC, Danny Bulinati again. I know I'm reading this one, but we got someone special that's going to kick off the synopsis for you first here.
Meet John W. Kelvin, president of Kelvin Armaments, supplier of weapons to over a score of countries, one of the world's 10 richest men, balancer of power, merchant of death. It's said that he once bought an entire town in Arizona, evacuated it, and tested a Kelvin H-bomb there. Not everyone got out, or so they say. No one can prove it, of course. For all his success, all of his money, John Kelvin is still obsessed with the dread of war. By 1985, every world power had stockpiles of Kelvin superweapons. Bombers, cruise missiles, tactical warheads, germ bombs, hand lasers. John Kelvin had every reason to worry about surviving the threatening total war.
Kelvin had a busy day on the phone. No, just kidding. I can't do fucking Rod Serling. Kelvin had a busy day on the phone. Terrorists had used Kelvin machine guns in an attack. Research had determined the fallout half-life on the new cobalt bomb was 500 years, which was great. The dirtier the bomb, the more it was worth. Then Kelvin receives word that Sherlaw wants to see him in the vault, and he hurries down. The work is complete. Suspended animation. A shelter against bombs, fallout, sickness, and even time itself. The lab is a mile underground and completely contained. A cesium clock will keep 2 men alive and frozen for 250 years without aging. Supplies for when they awakened included oxygen, freeze-dried food, medicine, gold, anything they could possibly need when awakening in the future. Good, good, Kelvin says. When the war comes... When? Of course I meant if. You still have qualms. I don't think it's right, Sherlaw says. This could all be used to prevent war, not hide from it. But you took my money anyway. You built it. You want to live and see the future? Yes, I do. The conversation between Sherlaw and Kelvin is interrupted by a radio transmission from the Pentagon. Unmarked Kelvin bombers are flying over the North Pole, eluding radar and too fast to stop. They need technical data on the planes, which will be in range in 2 hours. That's it, Kelvin exclaims. Turn on the freezers. But you can't be serious, Sherlaw replies. You've got to get them the data, explain it. That could take hours. We could all die. Now turn on the freezers, or if you won't, I will. Kelvin grabs a wrench off the table and slams it across Sherlaw's head, killing him. He scrambles into the vault and enters suspended animation. His pulse slows and nearly stops. 1 breath a day, 1 heartbeat every 6 hours. While on the Earth's surface the war raged, centuries pass. The last cesium atom decays. Relays click. Coils heat. Kelvin is returned to life. The year is 2485. The nearby Geiger counter is silent. The air tests good. The war is over. Kelvin steps over Sherlaw's skeleton and hops into the elevator that will take him to the surface. It worked, he exults. But he is surprised to be met by a party of soldiers as he steps into the daylight. "John Kelvin," one of them shouts, "for crimes committed against humanity in the year 1985, you have been sentenced to death." Kelvin has no time to speak before being fried by blasters. No time to see the monument he falls in front of, now green with age, erected to keep his memory alive down through the centuries, so that the grandsons of those he doomed would know him. In memoriam, John W. Kelvin, 1933 to 2485, who caused the Third World War.
Detroit. Committed was misspelled. Who's the editor on these books? CNC. I think Wyatt Guan read Jack Olick's Death of a Dictator in issue 58 and thought that was just a dandy idea. Human memory, as we all know, can be pathetically short, so there's certainly part of me that doesn't think this reception would happen. If you're this pissed off and you obviously know where he's buried, you have 500 years to dig a mile underground and wake him up yourself. Of course, this ending is so much more satisfying. No trial or anything. The way technology is advanced, I wouldn't be shocked at all if Bezos, Musk et al. Don't have something like this ready to go. I love me my retro futurism. 1985 was still 7 years away in 1978, and now it's 40 years ago. God damn it. Guan and Bulanati run a much tighter ship than the previous story. Who doesn't love some rich schmuck getting what he deserves? Bald head, thick mustache, if, not when, the war starts. You get a definite vibe off this guy pretty quick. Callouts, page 3, panel 4 of World War III on the surface, and the first 3 panels on page 4 of Kelvin walking by Sherlaw's skeleton and the white X over his head as he goes up the elevator. Probably represents the doors opening to the outside. With his bald head, he looks a bit like Professor X there. The shadows are great. Completely captures how evil he is. A 4-page DAD triumphant return.
Yeah, I gotta say, I didn't mention this in the synopsis, but when I was reading the story, I couldn't find where they named Sherlaw. I was like, this guy seems pretty important to the plan, and I didn't catch his name. And I went through it a couple of times, but I'm not the most patient of readers, so I just missed it somewhere. But I'm glad he did have a name. So my CNC, I'll say, day after Doomsday, right after a story with D-Day in the title. Okay, fine. We get Bulanati on full art duties, just art in general, and the overall quality of the drawing and design seems similar to what we got in the opening story to me, while the inking seems heavier and more well embellished, which adds fuel to my Miller only inked the opening story fire. Okay, but on the other hand, the art does show a little more flair here, especially on page 3, with panel 3's deep freeze, very cool looking panel. Panel 4's World War III fireworks that Rich mentioned, and the nice touch of the, I thought, unnamed engineers, but it's Sherlaw's dusty pile of bones on panel 6. The callousness that he steps over, and it's the utter just wreck and decomposition of Sherlaw's remains. Very cool little touch there. This one was pretty visually entertaining. And maybe, as Rich again alluded to, we hadn't so recently read that eternal parade of Hitler story, I wouldn't have felt such like eye-rolling deja vu about the ending we get here. It is a step up overall from the opener, though, for sure. And to finish the issue, we have
The Stand-In. 6 pages, script by Roger Mackenzie, pencils by Juan Ortiz, inks by Joe Giella. A massive explosion obliterates a nearby Jeep, blowing Martin Harris off his feet. Thousands of miles away, his daughter, Tiffany, lies delirious and dying in a hospital bed. Her mother and a doctor stand by the bed. I'm sorry, Mrs. Harris. There's nothing we can do now except wait and pray. Poor Tiffany, her mother sobs. I wish Martin could be here now, but he's in France. I hope he's all right. I don't know what I'd do if I were to lose him too. In her delirium, Tiffany whispers, Papa, no. France. All is black. But Martin starts to come around and is beyond amazed to see Tiffany, her long red hair and pink nightgown, shaking him awake as shells and bullets fly around him. Papa, you must get up, Papa. Please, hurry. My God, oh my God. Tiff? But how? A Nazi fighter roars overhead on a strafing run, loops around and comes back. Get behind me, Tiff. I don't know how you got here, but I do know I'm not going to see you hurt. Look out. Run, Tiffany whispers in her hospital bed. They try to flee, but Martin is hit and goes down. We're sitting ducks here, Tiff. You have to find shelter before that Kraut makes another pass at us. No, I won't leave you, Papa. I won't. Not until you're safe. She grabs his Tommy gun and opens fire at the diving German plane, which explodes. She helps her father to his feet and they limp off through the smoking wreckage. Come on, Papa. You can lean on me, she murmurs in bed. Hush, baby, her mother replies. Try to rest. Doctor, why does she keep mumbling about her father? I'll be blunt, Mrs. Harris. The disease is very advanced. She's out of her head in delirium. I'm afraid it's just a matter of minutes now. France. Martin staggers in Tiffany's arms. I love you, Papa. So does Mama. She misses you very much. A clanking noise makes Martin turn his head. An enemy tank is bearing down on the machine gun blazing. Run, Tiff, he cries. We can't fight that. But Tiffany pulls a grenade off her father's belt and charges the tank, firing the Tommy gun. I can, Papa. Don't you see, Papa? There's no hope for me. I'm dying. But you and Mama. The States. Please, Papa, take care of Mom. I'm sorry, Mrs. Harris. She's gone. Thousands of miles apart, mother and father cry out Tiffany's name at the same time. France. Tiffany hurls the grenade at the tank. Goodbye, Papa. I have to go. The blast destroys the tank. When the smoke clears, Tiffany is gone, and Martin stands in the middle of the now silent battlefield. Did he imagine it all? But something catches his eye and he picks it up. It was a bracelet with Tiffany's name on it from Walter Reed Army Hospital. I've claimed many on the myriad battlefields of the weird war. For I am judge, jury, and if need be, executioner. I am death, but I am not without my own sense of humor. As the doctor and Mrs. Harris leave the hospital room, they don't see a faint smile cross Tiffany's face, nor do they see a string of bullet holes across her body. Killjoy was here? Oh, I'm saving it all for the CNC. This sucked. This was one of the worst pieces of dreck I've seen in this book in a long time. Everything about it, from the art to the story, just stinks. This is what you give a great like Joe Giella to ink. Flashes back to the nonsensical 60s DC war stories, which we started the show with in the reprint issues. But at least those were fun. We start off with the classic strafing enemy fighter flying too low on page 3, panel 1. The magenta backgrounds and a lot of the panels are eyesores, page 5, for example. And on the same panel, I assume she's grabbed Dad's Tommy gun. That forward grip doesn't belong there at all. Panel 6, how does good old Tiff know how to use a Tommy gun? Page 4, panel 1, the classic strafing enemy fighter shot down by ground fire. Page 6, panels 1 and 2. How does good old Tiff know how to use a hand grenade? An atomic hand grenade, apparently. The hatches are all closed on the previous page, so it didn't get inside. A tank would brush off the shrapnel from a hand grenade like rainwater. The blanket was pulled up over Tiffany all story long, and in the end, it's gone, so you can see the bullet holes in her body. Last story panel. The kid going on, Papa, Papa, Papa. The only panel I liked was page 6, panel 3 of the Death's Head on the Battlefield, though the title panel and the end panel of Death are pretty good. But then Death exactly repeats himself in the beginning and end of the story. Once was enough. No, just no. Easy. Thumbs down.
Okay, so this isn't in the script, but I just gotta say, like, no matter what you think of this story, it was more than worth it to hear Rich read the synopsis. Like, I just top marks for that, man. I love the you know, you're reading as Tiff and everything. Just if even if you didn't like this story, sometimes the synopses are more fun than reading the actual comic book. But I'm here with my CNC, and it's kind of a counterpoint. Here I come with the sunshine. Never say never, folks. Sure, the art is a little more sparse in this story compared to the two previous, with less backgrounds, larger panels overall. But the storytelling is really clear, and the excellent the extra real estate actually felt like a nice breather after the more cramped designs of the previous offerings in this issue. I really like the logo bar at the bottom of page 1, even though, as Rich said, Death's dialogue is pretty lame, and the comment about him having his own sense of humor doesn't even make a lick of sense. But still, I got some Herb Trimpe, George Tuska vibes from that plane that Rich liked so much in panel 1 of page 3. So that makes me happy right there. Anytime I even get a hint of those two artist styles, little endorphins release in my brain. So it might be unfair, but it still worked in the story's favor for me. Still, even I, in my most positive modes of operation, can only try so hard to salvage this one. The idea behind this story isn't necessarily bad, and it could have worked just fine for me, but its execution is very sloppy, and the touch with the bullet holes in Tiffany's body at the end was just dumb, unnecessary and dumb. Like, again, I'm going to riff a little bit off my script here. This could have been like a psychic dream manifestation of Tiffany explaining some of Rich's questions, like how does she know how to operate a Tommy gun or a grenade? Because they're not real. Like, she seems to pick up her father's Tommy gun, but it's just a manifestation of her dream self over there saving her father's life. And it works the way she wants it to. The grenade works the way she wants it to. All that could have been explained in the story. It isn't. And I did a lot of that myself as I was reading it, but I realized that's what I was doing. So I didn't like this. I didn't dislike this anywhere near as much as you, Rich. But yeah, it ain't great. It's definitely the flat tire in the issue. So say la vie.
Okay, so that's it for the stories. What do we do next? Oh yeah, the APO Weird War Tales. And my missive comes from Henry Tweller from San Fran, CA. Dear Paul, I really must protest. War Games has no place in a magazine called Weird War Tales. Not that I think it has a place in any other war comic, mind you, but it certainly is out of tone and out of touch with the meaning of WWT. Weird War Tales, especially as personified by the death character you've chosen to use as the host, is the most somber magazine on the newsstand. With no reoccurring characters to provide banter, all attention is riveted on the literally life or death struggles of the characters. That's what we enjoy, and that's why we buy Weird War, not a page of giggles. Note please that my last line implies that the page was funny. I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt here. I found it boring and humorless, but some of your readers might have gotten a chuckle out of it. Good for them, but it's still not enough reason to put the page in the book in the first place. And the response was, what about it, readers? Is there room for War Games, or is it a waste of an occasional page? Send your opinion on that, and blah, 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 to APO Weird War Tales. So yeah, I suppose it's a valid point. Do you want a page of giggles in a horror comic? I honestly wouldn't miss it. But I already cheated and looked ahead, and Dave Manick appears in these pages 4 more times. So I guess Paul made the decision for you. So good on you for those who like it.
Yeah, I gotta say, the tradition of having a humor page in a mystery title, as they called it back then, is long-standing with DC. Like, Sergio Aragonis did humor gags in House of Mystery or House of Secrets. Like, it's not exactly uncommon, especially at DC, for them to have a humor page in a horror comic. So I don't know. Like, I get that it didn't, like, War Games didn't really tie into the theme of this book. Like, there wasn't a supernatural element to the joke, whereas Aragonis would have Cain and Abel in his strips. So yeah, okay, fine, but still. feel like he's splitting hairs there, or he doesn't read the other mystery titles. Because people who are reading Weird War Tales expecting it to be just like a Sergeant Rock book, I don't know what to tell you. But my letter that I picked out of the pack here is from John M. Krause. And as I actually go to look at it in the book here, which I do have the page up for once, it starts off like this. Dear Paul, I send my hearty congratulations to whoever drew the cover of Weird War Tales number 59. The art was vivid and refreshing. The first story, the old one, was a winner all around, with top honors going to Ernie Chan. But Gordon of Khartoum was a generally childish story to my disappointment. I disagree. I like that one. But I did admire the genuine change of location and time, though. Death God was an entertaining story that was made more intriguing by the imaginative mixing of historical peoples and the events of yesteryear with a touch of tomorrow. I might add that Russ Heath's artwork was superb. You might, because that's always freaking true. Okay, John? This was from John M. Krause, Box 647, GUSR, Kingman, Arizona, 86401. Now, Paul's response to John's letter says, the cover to Weird War Tales number 59 was rendered by Alan Lee Weiss, who just recently helped revitalize Shazam with his unusual art style. He tends to journey from comic to comic nomadically, but we have every hope that he will return to these pages eventually. Rich will let you know if he ever does. As for Russ Heath, Death God was his return to these pages. And as longtime readers who remember an instant classic called The Pool, which we all do on this show, will attest, his current assignment is Mr. Miracle, but he'll be back again as well. And in his case, third time's guaranteed to be the charm. So Russ is coming back, and yeah, well, okay, you'd know, but they thought he was coming back. A mention of the pool in a letters page or anywhere really is always going to get my call out, because that's one of my favorite examples of a comic book story to show anyone ever, as you've heard ad nauseum before, but I'll repeat it again and again and again, because that is a masterclass in how to tell a story using the comic book medium. But what shocked me here was like, Russ is working on Mr. Miracle. Like, I didn't realize that. So I had to look into it. It turns out Russ inked issues 24 and 25 of Mr. Miracle, the final two issues of the non-Jack Kirby extension of that series that began with issue 19. So yeah, he was assigned to Mr. Miracle, but his contribution came at the end, sweeping up the, I guess we shouldn't have fired Jack Kirby era of the Fourth World books. So, you know, that letter hit me on all kinds of levels. And, you know, anytime I get to go and find out something new about the Fourth World books, even the non-Kirby ones, it's rare for me, because those are some of my absolute jams. And I did not realize before this that there was Russ Heath work, no matter how minor, in one of those series. So there you go. That's it for the letters, the stories. We're going to move on to our spotlighted ads for this issue.
And just to follow up real quickly, as was stated, you know, ad nauseum before, you know, we gave the hail and farewell for Russ Heath in that one episode. So obviously he doesn't come back. And I'm 99% sure that Weiss's only appearance was that cover of that one book. So we don't see him again either. But hey, anyway, ads. I was drifting towards one ad that I might end up selecting next issue. It's repeated there. When I decided to do another deep dive into the advertiser's direct pages. And as usual, it didn't disappoint. Searchlight photo magazine for singles. Send $1. Eastern, box 2775, NYC 10001. The only Searchlight magazine I could find is a quarterly published one in Great Britain. Founded in 1975, it still publishes exposés about racism, anti-Semitism, and fascism in the United Kingdom and elsewhere. Searchlight's main focus is on the far right in the United Kingdom, as well as covering similar entities in other countries. It's been announced that it will cease on-paper publication after the spring 2025 issue, so yeah, this year, which marks the 50th anniversary of it being in print. Investigations and reporting will continue via features on the magazine's website with posts on Twitter/X at Searchlight_mag and the Facebook group Searchlight, the Anti-Fascist magazine. So here's an unintended plug for those guys. We need your work more than ever. Maybe they used to have a Valentine's Day issue where anti-fascists could find love? Nah, probably not. Acne problems, $2. Check or money order. Youth. P.O. Box 13306C, KC, KS 66113. The wording of this micro ad is unfortunate. Makes it sound like, for $2, you get acne problems. Free assorted samples, $1. Handling, Box 8298, Pittsburgh, PA 15218. Vagueness is the name of the game when you have a maximum of 4 lines. Get your point across. But the winner, Magic Tooth Fairy Kit, $1. Miller Code 2600C, Loyola, Austin, KX 78723. You better believe I was looking for info on this. Couldn't find anything vintage, but the interweb is replete with current versions of this thanks to eBay and Etsy. A tiny vial of fairy dust, a tiny wand, and a small note in a scroll from the fairy to the kid. I am so glad I didn't know about these when my son was of age.
Oh God, yeah, it would have been hilarious though. And like, sometimes this is where we have to go. And I always love when Rich goes on a deep dive in these tiny little ad sections, the advertisers direct pages. And I gotta say, there was an Aquaman hostess ad in this issue. So I was, again, going straight towards it. And then I read it. And it kind of sucked. So I didn't even want to put you guys through my so-called masterful renditions of a hostess ad for one that was that bad. So it was off to the salt mines of those pages crammed with tiny ads for me too. But boy, did I find one. Mine, and I'm going to make it bigger here so I can read it better. Mine starts off with a headline that says, "Make anyone do anything you mentally command with your mind alone." And, you know, the more detailed text below says, "Silently command, control, dominate anyone. Say nothing. Watch even perfect strangers do what you wish, willingly and cheerfully. Absolutely uncanny. Awe-inspiring details revealed in Success P Manual Review Folio. Send only $1 to Commando Co., Division K160, 15 West 38th Street, New York, New York, 10018. So just a casual offer of flawless, silent, undetectable mind control for $1. I gotta wonder, was there a kid around our age who sent away for this and found out it actually worked and is now like running the world? I don't know. That would explain a lot of things, because I would imagine only some of the dumbest among us would have sent for this. And then if it worked, you got one of the dumbest people alive absolutely in control of everyone's minds. Yeah. I didn't want to go any deeper on that because I'm depressed enough these days, okay? So I didn't want to find out anything more about this one, but there you go. Absolutely undefeatable mind control for $1. That's a good place to leave it on, except we're not going to leave it there. We got another thing we'd like to say before we go, and we're going to say it in our section called Got Any Last Words?
Just like I was psyched to discover I owned Walt Simonson's first ever work in Weird War Tales 10, I'm equally so to discover the same in Weird War Tales 64 for Frank Miller. The cover, intro page, and first story all address D-Day, and the cover date is June 1978, 34 years later. For newer listeners to this show, here's where I reveal that my family visited Normandy in 2019 on the 75th anniversary of the invasion. St. Mary Glees, Point du Hoc, Utah and Omaha Beach, the U.S. Cemetery in Colville-sur-Mer. It's as close to a pilgrimage as anything I ever expect to take. But as much as I liked it, and I did like certain aspects of it, it had lots of baggage. We all know my opinion on The Stand-In. So for the win, day after Doomsday, If not for Frank Miller, this would be bottom half of the pile easy. It still is bottom half, but I had to mull it over a bit.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sad I read this issue, but it is a little below even bog standard when taken as a whole. As you said, Day After Doomsday kind of takes the crown by default. It's kind of one of those paper crowns you get at Burger King, you know? Like, here you go, kid. Here's your crown. It's still fun enough for a read or two, I guess. You know, again, like I said, I'm not mad about it. But also, hey, count how many times I say I guess in this episode. You'll win nothing. Right, so there you go, people. That's the content of the issue. That's all we could wring out of it for you. Here we are at the section of the show we call the Scuttlebutt, and that's where I'll mention you should go to our Facebook page, the Weird Warriors Podcast Facebook page, which is freaking awesome, run by our esteemed co-host, your friend, and I think mine. I don't want to ask him directly. He might hurt my feelings. Rich runs the Facebook page, Weird Warriors Podcast Facebook page. Also, you can go to redbubble.com. You really can, people. I'm not kidding you. And you can search the Weird Warriors Podcast. You can get our amazing logo that was drawn and designed by Bill Walco of theherobusiness.com and of Archie Comics fame. You can get that logo on anything you want, anything you could possibly imagine. That's available at redbubble.com. And if you get that stuff, you take a picture of that merch with our logo on it, send it via Facebook Messenger to the Facebook page. You'll get a Sam Star. I'm not going to explain what that is because we shouldn't have any of them left, even though we do. So that's my part of the scuttlebutt. Hey, Rich, what do you got?
Vote for the fan-voted Intel Report episode. As I said before, to make life easier on everyone, we've tightened the focus to a one-year period. Weird War Tales 50 to 62, February 2024-2025. If the fans decide to rally their forces and an episode from outside that arc wins, fine. Your wishes shall be honored. The official eligible list: Ragman 3, Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer, Where Monsters Dwell, Graveyard of Empires, Swamp Thing 82 and 83 with Sergeant Rock and Enemy Ace, X-Men Magneto, Sons of Liberty, Hound, Anarchy 7 with the Haunted Tank that Max just can't wait to do that one. Sledgehammer 44, Journey into Mystery, Great Zombies of History, and Project Rice. Details for each on the Intel Report album on the FB page. Vote, vote, vote. So, what's left? One thing is left. It's the teaser for our next episode. And whatever can that be? Why, that would be Weird War Tales number 65. If you like Greek mythology, this one is for you. A signed book. Circe, Centaur, cannibalism? Maybe. You tell me. Next time.
Hey kids, what other words start with C? And why get so hung up on the word cannibalism? Yeah, I can't wait. If you like Greek mythology, Max pushes up his glasses. Looking forward to it. And what am I looking forward to? Hey, another episode of this show. What's this show? It's the Weird Warriors Podcast. Who am I? I'm Max. He's Rich. We're the Battling Bros. We're the Weird Warriors. And this show that we host is one on which we promise to make war no more.